Thank you guys for having me again. Again, apologies for being so late. It's just the traffic was not on my side today. So, but alhamdulillah, I'm happy to be here. So we've been talking about just kind of different situations or different people and different things that happened in their life that they were able to kind of get over that difficulty and the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has helped them get over that difficulty. Today, I want to shift gears a little bit where we're still respecting the theme that we established and we're going to talk about this semester. But we're going to talk about a specific incident as opposed to talking about a story of someone's life. So before we went through Maryam alayhi salam, the second time we went through who? You guys remember? Musa alayhi salam, very good. Went to Musa alayhi salam, and so now we will be going through. We're going to go through a particular story. We won't necessarily focus on we're going to go through the situation and not a story, right? When we're talking about the life of the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That most definitely, without a doubt, you'll find in the Messenger of Allah a very perfect role model, a very perfect example. And with thinking about that, you realize that the Prophet ﷺ went through so many different situations in his life, and not all of them were pleasant and not all of them were easy. But he got through them, and the way that he got through them was by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Quran is so beautiful, and it's something that is a guide for us because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent it down in real time. As the Prophet was going through things, the Quran is coming down. As situations are arising, the Quran is coming down. As he's experiencing certain emotions, ayats are coming down. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is timing it perfectly, where it's almost as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's like the mentor of the Prophet, right? Who's during the Prophet was called tarbiyah, his personal growth, and allowing for him to, yes, experience the things that he needs to experience and experience the hardships that we're all going to experience, but also giving him that guideline to be able to get through it. So you have that the Muslims experienced a very difficult time in Mecca, that for those 13 years of them being in Mecca, they were being tortured, they were being treated very badly, their homes were being taken away, their money was being taken away. They didn't have any type of room, not political room, they didn't have any physical room, they didn't have any monetary room to stand on their own 2 feet, okay? So when they were in Mecca, it was kind of like the command for them was to just be quiet and take it. Make sense? Be quiet and take it. Now, the Prophet complained, but he complained to Allah. He would make dua, and he would make dua to Allah. And in him making dua to Allah, he will make dua for ease, he will make dua for victory, he'll make dua for many different things. You have that the Muslims migrate, and they migrate to Medina. When they go to Medina, it's a bit more of like a breath of fresh air, where they can almost exhale. And I say almost because as they're getting things together, they get news that basically the Quraysh are coming to attack them. Because what the Quraysh didn't want was for the Muslims to gain popularity in the Arabian land, and then they, from there, have some type of strength to come back and retaliate. So they knew that they were wrong for 13 years. And the worst thing is someone's revenge, and they didn't want that. So the Muslims are taking a deep breath, they're trying to get their life together, they get news about a spy, all these things happen, the Battle of Badr goes down. Okay, that was like a super Spark Notes version. We don't have time to go into that. The Battle of Badr happens, the Muslims win. This is a very problematic issue for the Quraysh. The reason being is because they were approaching the Battle of Badr being prepared to annihilate the Muslims and completely remove them off of the face of the earth. What they wanted was for no Muslims to exist anymore, so they were going to annihilate those people that were strong from amongst the Muslims. Then they were going to go and infiltrate into Medina and take care of the rest. When that did not happen, the Muslims gained traction in the Arabian Peninsula. The exact thing that the Quraysh did not want to happen is exactly what ended up happening. That everybody thought that this was these small group of people that nobody needed to worry about, and now all of a sudden they defeated one of the biggest tribes, one of the biggest nations, one of the people that had the most money to be able to fight against. So it was like, oh, now they have put them on the map. When the Battle of Badr occurred, there were a lot of prominent people in the Quraysh that had passed away, that were killed, okay, that were killed in that battle. So when the Quraysh went back to Medina, when they went back to Mecca, they got there, and the people that stayed behind, they said to them, like, you guys are really disgraceful. You went all the way there. You were supposed to, like, take care of these weak people, and you didn't do that. So instead, what you did was you made us lose our leaders. And so we're not going to sit down and wait for them to come and attack us. We're going to go meet them, right? So they basically just geared up and prepared for battle again. The Muslims get word of this. They get word that, okay, they're coming back for more. Now, this is less than a year after the first battle. So the Muslims already didn't have enough money. They already didn't have a lot of manpower. They already didn't have, like, completely established, like, a structure. Okay, like, they have barely gotten out of treaties, barely gotten out of, like, settling who's going to take what land, or who's going to be in what area of Medina, or how is Medina supposed to look. Barely got out of that, you know? You know, there's the establishment of rules, and then there's actually putting them into practice. Like, they're still trying to put these things into practice. And now they're going and heading for their second battle. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he gets this news, he gets this understanding that they're coming, he then seeks what's called shura. He starts to get advice from the companions. So he divides them up into two. There's the older companions, and there's the younger companions. He tells them, what should we do? Should we stay in our homes, meaning in the outskirts of Medina, right here at the door of Medina, and let them come to us and then we fight from here? Or should we go out and meet them? Now, when the Battle of Badr happened, there was a group of young companions who were not of age to fight. So they kept asking the Prophet, can we go? And the Prophet tells them, no, you have to stay here because you're not old enough. Next year, you will be old enough, but we are hoping we're not fighting next year. Okay? You can't go. This is the young companions now, next year's here, who now the Prophet is consulting with because they're of age to be a part of the battle. And so they say, Ya Rasulullah, we're going to meet them where they're at. We're going to, like, get them, this and that, because they're so hyper. Like, they're really hype. And then you have, like, the older companions who, like, we've been doing this for years. We should just stay where we're at and let them come to our doors and we'll deal with them. So the young companions, obviously, they had a lot more energy, you know, than the older companions. So they kept going. They kept pushing the Prophet, kept pushing the Prophet. So the Prophet said, you know what, we'll go and we'll meet them on the journey. When they did that, they were so excited. The Prophet went to his home. Their older companions turned to him. They're like, you guys are idiots. You just pushed him and forced him to make a decision that he didn't want to make because he had taken so long to, like, basically decide on the matter. Like, basically decide whether we're going to go out or we're going to, like, meet them here. So the younger companions felt really sad. And they went to the Prophet and they said, Ya Rasulullah, we didn't mean to force you to do something that you didn't want to do. Like, we apologize, all these things. And Prophet then says to them that, you know what? They said, you know what? If it's the case, we can stay inside of our homes. We can stay inside of Medina. When the Quraysh approaches here, we can fight from here. Because it seemed that was the decision that you wanted to do. And the Prophet then replies to them, and he says to them that it's not befitting of a messenger that once he has put on his armor, he takes it off. So we're going to go meet them where they're at. Meaning your decision was sound. Listen, you came in, you brought a suggestion, and the Prophet had the right to make the final decision. He could have said no, and he didn't. So your decision is fine. Now they go and they're going out to basically be able to meet the Quraysh, and they are an army of 3,000 men. All right, so the Meccans, the Prophet reaches the news that the Meccans are coming, and there are 3,000 of them, right? The Muslims have 1,000, right? The Meccans have how many? 3,000. The Muslims have? You guys already know I'm not good at math, but is that a balanced army? No. So the Prophet says that, you know what, we need to have a very good strategy. We're going to meet them at a place called Uhud. Now, Uhud, basically, it's almost like exactly the way I'm sitting. Yeah, I'll explain. Because there's a mountain that starts from that wall that goes all the way over to, like, this wall right here. And then where I'm sitting will kind of be considered like the hill. So this hill can see all that's coming from this way, but it cannot see what is behind you, right? It can't see what's behind me. The hill is facing towards Mecca. So that means that the army from Mecca will be approaching this way. So the Prophet puts 60 archers on this hill. He tells them, do not move your posts. And it's not just a don't move. He tells them that, listen, under no circumstances, under no situation should you move. That means that he goes into detail, he tells them, that means that if you were to see that there are like dead bodies on the ground, and the battlefield is so still that birds feel comfortable to come and pick at those dead bodies, unless and until I come and say you can leave your post, don't leave. Make sense? So even if you think the battle is over and the Muslims won, do not leave your post until I come and relieve you of your duty. So they said, we got it. So the battle starts, because now the Quraysh are approaching. And as they're approaching, before the battle starts, the Prophet tells them this: before the battle starts, there's who we now know as a hypocrite, but his name is Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. At the time, the companions didn't know he was a hypocrite, but the Prophet knew. Think about hypocrisy, is that something of the heart. So the Prophet was not allowed to act upon that knowledge of knowing his hypocrisy, because it would have then gave the companions liberty to act upon that. Make sense? But we're not allowed to say like, oh, that person's a hypocrite, we're going to treat them this way. We don't do that, because hypocrisy is an action of the heart. So there was even a situation where someone was held captive, and they said, La ilaha illallah, and one of the companions killed him, and the Prophet said, why'd you do that? He's like, well, he just said it because like he was held captive. The Prophet said, you don't know that. If someone says La ilaha illallah, you have to take it as that. You can't kill him. And so the Prophet had to pay what's called a blood money to that family. So the Prophet knew that Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul was a hypocrite, but he wasn't allowed to act upon anything, and he also didn't want to. That he would actually seek forgiveness for him until Allah SWT revealed ayat. And he said that if you were to even ask for his forgiveness for 60 times over, God will not forgive him. And the Prophet said, Wallahi, if I knew that 70 times would earn Allah SWT's forgiveness, I would make dua for him 70 times. The Prophet didn't even want to accept that he was a hypocrite. So Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul, what happened was that he had a little bit of clout, you could say, and before the Prophet came. When the Prophet came, he was much nicer, much kinder, just better leader, all these different things. So people started to gravitate towards the Prophet and not towards him. And so for him, he was a hypocrite because he said he believed in Allah, but he actually didn't. And the thing was that believing in the time of Medina gave you a lot of perks. You didn't have to pay taxes. We all know about why people don't like to pay taxes. We live in that world now. So you didn't have to pay taxes. You got certain amenities. You got to pick your land first. You got dibs if someone moved out. There were so many different things that you could benefit from. So as they're getting ready for the Meccans to approach, Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul says, you know what? We're not going to participate in this battle, because you let some little kids trick you into bringing you all the way here, and we're going to lose. And I'm not a part of the losing team, so me and my men, we're going to go. So he takes 300 of the men with him. Altogether, 300 of them leave. We said that the Muslims started off with how many people? 1,000. Now how many more people do they have? I'm laughing already because I'm making you guys do math. 700. Okay? It's okay. We're on the same page. Okay? 700. Right? How many people are the Meccans coming with? 3,000. Who said 30? 3,000. 3,000. Okay? So now, as if they already weren't at odds, they're extremely at odds now. And these are people that are supposed to be in certain areas strategically. They wait till the strategic plan has been placed to decide to leave. They leave, and the Prophet says, we don't have time to deal with this. Okay? 700 to 3,000, we gotta fight. What are we gonna do? Cry about it right now? The army's here. So the Prophet says, we don't have time. He just tells the archers, don't leave your post. You stay here. And basically the plan was that the archers at that time, they acted as if they were like snipers, okay? Where they were such good men at archery that they had a target and they were out. You didn't know where it was coming from. And because they were on this elevated hill, it's as if the Meccans couldn't see them when they approached. They would get distracted by all of Uhud, because Uhud is a huge mountain. They would get distracted by all of Uhud, that they wouldn't even be able to see this little hill that was right there. It kind of blended in with the mountain. So as they approach, the Prophet strategically tells them, okay, there's this thing that they would do. It was called a like Mubaraza, okay? Halmu Mubaraza. Anybody watch the Omar series? It's like really dramatic. Yeah, it's really good. Watch it. Watch it. It's really good. So Mubaraza is like a duel. So they'll send their strongest men in the middle, and then they will fight, and that kind of like the coin toss type situation. So they will fight, and then they'll decide like, you know, kind of where the swing of the battle was going to go. All right, I understand that it's not a coin toss because people's life at stake, but that's kind of how it was. So the Prophet he says, you know what? This is what we're going to do. We're going to not have a duel. As people start approaching, as they keep approaching, the archers are just going to start spraying their arrows. So they're doing that. And basically the men on the front line of the battle at the bottom of the hill, they're not doing nothing. Because as the Meccans are approaching, the archers are shooting from behind. So they're like basically dealing with them, and they're just approaching. Now there's a companion named Abu Dujana, and Abu Dujana was known to be ambidextrous. Okay, he could fight with both hands. He could hold swords with both hands. So as the arrows are going, he is going in the middle of the battlefield, and he's just like doing away with everybody. Okay, he's like done. You know, and the thing was like he had a lot of pride in battle. And the Prophet said the only time that pride was allowed was like in this particular situation where you were like, you really, you know, he had a lot of talent. And so he's doing this, and like basically the whole entire thing was done. All right, after like 30 minutes, battle was done. Technically, they felt that the battle was done. The Meccans were like, we don't understand what just happened. We came here expecting to like deal with you guys. You guys are basically handing it to us, and they ran away. Right? They ran away. They left the battlefield. However, any true person who's actually a great soldier or a great general, they won't put their strongest men in the front line. Make sense? There will always be some other alternative strategy. Khalid bin Walid sees all of this happening. He takes himself and 1,000 men, and they just sit off to the side. And he's like looking, and he's scoping the area, and he realizes that the reason why all the people are dying is because they have these archers on this hill. So he says, you know what, we're going to sit here, and we're going to wait for a moment to approach the back of the hill. So they're waiting. The whole entire battlefield is still. There's nothing happening. Nobody's fighting. Nobody's doing nothing. The Quraysh, most of them have run away. You know what I'm saying? The ones who were left, they were picking up their dead, trying to gather like whatever things that they could gather. It just seemed like the battle was over. So the archers say, you know what? It's been a while. It's been like an hour and a half. We should leave the battlefield. We should go down. See what's happening. Congratulate our brothers. Like, we won. And you had 10 of the archers who said, no, the Prophet said, do not leave. So we won't leave. And they said, no, it's done. Like, it's been an hour. Why are we still here? So they leave. As soon as they leave, Khalid bin Walid sees this as his opportunity. And he approaches the hill from behind. He massacres the rest of the archers and starts to fight the Muslims from behind. Because now he's coming from behind their post. He's coming like from behind me and fighting them like this. So they don't know what's happening. They don't know what's going on. They just know that things are getting chaotic. You have that at this time, basically, in order to determine who wins, they have like a flag. And if the flag touched the ground, you basically lost the battle, right? So Mus'ab bin Umair had the flag. And Mus'ab bin Umair is fighting because he was a warrior. That's what he did. But the Prophet ﷺ gets hurt in this process. And when the Prophet ﷺ gets hurt, it's not a small wound, right? The Prophet ﷺ is hurt to the point where he is like bleeding profusely, and they have to remove him from the battlefield. When they remove him from the battlefield, then the Quraysh start to spread the rumor that the Prophet ﷺ died. They start to spread a rumor saying that the Prophet ﷺ died. When the Muslims hear the Prophet ﷺ died, half of them stop fighting. They're like, then what are we here for? And the other half is like, are you dumb? We have to keep going. Like, we can't just lay down. Like, we have families. We have things to go back to. Like, yes, if he died, but guess what? Allah is forever. So you have to determine what you're fighting for right now. Are you fighting for him or are you fighting for Allah? And then they get back up. And the thing was, as they were escorting the Prophet off of the battlefield, there were more Qurayshi men following to try to kill him. So Mus'ab bin Umair was known to have resembled the Prophet a lot. So he begins to talk and recite like the Prophet. So then they get confused. They're like, is that him or is that him? Right? Is that him or is that him? Because they would like cover their face a little bit. So then they go to Musab bin Umair, and that they massacre, they murder Musab bin Umair. He is martyred in that battle in that moment. Now, there is a lady by the name of Hind. Her father was killed by Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu in the Battle of Badr. So she came to the Battle of Uhud with the sole purpose of killing Hamza. She employs a slave by the name of Wahshi, and she tells him, you've been crying for your freedom for many years. This is your moment. You kill him, you're good. Wahshi finds this as his moment. That there's so much chaos on the battlefield, nobody's really paying attention to anything, I'm going to kill Hamza. He has a dagger, and he takes his, well, it's more like a sword. He takes his sword, and he basically kills Hamza. He says that when he lets it go, he looked into Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu's eyes, and when he looked into him, he swore he thought that he was going to be the one to die. Because Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu was not known to be like he wasn't like a small man, and he was known to be extremely intimidating. Like, he was like kind, and he would like play with kids and stuff, but other people, like adults, would not look him into the eye because they were scared of him. That's how much like his demeanor commanded like this level of respect, you know? That when Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu converted, his conversion story is actually like my favorite. Everybody talks about all the other ones, but this one's like my favorite because he is like being his whole self, okay? He goes, he's like hunting, he comes back to Mecca, and he had a tradition that when he would hunt and he would come back like into the city, he would go and do tawaf with the Kaaba. Even though they weren't Muslim, they had a concept of like reverence for the Kaaba. So he would go and do tawaf with the Kaaba. He's smiling, he's like carrying the kids, playing with them. He has his bow and arrow, and it said that his bow and arrow was the size of a whole human. Yes, no, like these are like, yes, a whole human. Can you imagine? Like, no, like it would take 3 men to pick it up. These are the narrations explaining Hamza radiallahu ta'ala. This is what he used to pick up and like hunt. Like this was his norm, all right? So a slave woman comes to him and she says to him, like, you look really goofy right now. He's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you're walking around here smiling and like saying hi to everybody. And Abu Jahl has been like annihilating your nephew. Like he's literally cussing him out, like treating him badly. And that morning Abu Jahl had just did a lot of terrible things to the Prophet. So Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu got upset. He went to Abu Jahl and he said that I heard you've been talking about my nephew. Abu Jahl says, yeah, well, what is it to you? And Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu took his bow and just smacked him in the head with it, and he kind of fell out. So Abu Jahl's people got up and they were like about to fight Hamza, and he was like, no, you don't want to do this. Like, y'all just sit down, basically. So Abu Jahl musters up like the last bit of energy that he can to get up, and he tells him, like, he basically apologizes because you don't have a choice. Like, either you're going to die or you apologize. So he apologizes to Hamza. And Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, are you going to do it again? And he basically like had some back and forth with him a little bit. And then he says, well, what do you say if I tell you that I'm on the religion of Muhammad? So what do you have to say now? And Abu Jahl's like, and this is in the haram. And the haram now is busy, but then it was busier. Because then it was like a marketplace. So it was like the place you went for announcements, you know? Everybody was there. So everybody gets quiet. And everybody's looking at Hamza like, what just happened? Like, Omar became Muslim 2 weeks ago, and now you? This is insane. This is crazy. And so everybody became scared of the Muslims. That's why they exiled them. Because they couldn't do anything. At this point, they had Umar ibn Khattab and they had Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu. They couldn't do anything. The boycott happened because they didn't want the Muslims to gain any more power. That's why the boycott happened. So you have Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu who commands attention, who commands respect just by existing. And Wahshi, his freedom was so important to him that he decided that he was going to fulfill this. He was going to kill him. And when he did it, he always says that he'd rather have been a slave for the rest of his life than do what he did. Even though he ended up becoming Muslim. He became Muslim, but he didn't stay in Medina because he knew that it hurt the Prophet ﷺ when it happened. It was very hurtful to the Prophet ﷺ that Hamza radiallahu anhu had passed away. So now the Prophet ﷺ is in this little, basically it's like a little room. They still have it now in Medina, like in the Uhud area. I don't know, if you guys ever go for Umrah, you should think about doing tours. It's actually really cool. They still have it, but now it's a little bit more. People are weird. Humans are weird. They get weird over time. So it like has all these like interesting perfumes there, and they say it smells like the blood of the Prophet, when really it's just people putting perfume there. So it's like it's really weird, but it's a cool place to see if you go see it. So the Prophet is there, and he's bleeding profusely because the way that they had hit him, his helmet had entered into his cheeks. Okay, it cut through his cheeks. And so what happened now is that they needed to remove the helmet from his face, but the issue was that the helmet was so deep into his face that they couldn't just pull it out. It would have required like someone basically putting their foot like on his forehead and like pulling it out. And so out of the respect that they had for the Prophet, nobody wanted to do that. So Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, well, if that's the case, then I will go and I will basically pull it out with my teeth. Because I don't want to like put my foot on the Prophet's head, so I'll pull it out with my teeth. And another companion comes and says, no, let me do it. So he pulls it out, and his tooth flies out. Like he's like basically doesn't have any teeth. Okay, after pulling both of them out, and when he does that, then the Prophet says later on in life he like walks past the Prophet, he smiles, he doesn't have any teeth. Prophet says, this is the most beautiful toothless man I've ever met. You know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like truly going to bless him for it happening. Now, if you guys know anything about medicine, I don't know how many of you guys are trying to be a doctor, but when something is like stopping blood and you pull it out, what's going to happen? The blood is going to start gushing, right? So what happened was that Fatima radiallahu anha was there, and she took she had burned some ash, like some like paper, not necessarily paper, but leaves and like wood, okay? And she took these ashes and she like stuffed them on the face of the Prophet to seal the wound. And that's how they would do like a lot of medicine. So when she did that, the Prophet he got really upset. And wasn't upset at her, like the whole situation. You know what I'm saying? He's looking at the battlefield, he's looking at what happened, and he says, what do you say about a people that this is what they do to each other? What do you say about a people? Because the battle was over, sure, right? And even if we say that the Quraysh came back, they came back fine, the battle was over. Mus'ab bin Umair, when he died, the battle was over because the flag hit the floor. But the Quraysh were on the level of vengeance to the point where they decided not to stop. They kept going. So they violated their own rules of war. And the Prophet says that what has God to do with a people who does things like this? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, you don't have the right to say that. Not because it's wrong, but because you're better. And the way that you're better is that this is war. And when it comes to war, people don't respect their rules. You should know that they don't know better. You should know that they're not going to do better. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet. And so after this, the battle is over, and you have that Abu Sufyan, he comes to the battlefield. And as if things weren't already difficult, he then starts to proclaim very loudly, after they see that majority of the Muslims have passed away. He says that you will find today on your battlefield that there have been a lot of you that have been murdered, that have been martyred, that have been killed. And then he says that, and you will also find that there are some of your people that their bodies have been desecrated. Because what happened was mutated. What happened was Hind, after Hamza was killed, she went and she pulled out his organs and she started to wear them as like jewelry, basically. Yeah, it's like really graphic. I know, like I realized after I started this that I decided to choose a really like gruesome story today. She started to wear them as jewelry. And he says that I didn't tell them to do it, but I also didn't stop them either. So the next time you want to approach us, remember this day. This is like basically your doomsday. And he leaves the battlefield. Prophet comes and he assesses the situation. And he sees Mus'ab bin Umair first and he's just crying. Because Mus'ab bin Umair was someone who was very wealthy in his lifetime. But when he became Muslim, he lost all of his wealth. Reason why was because he was generational wealth. So that wealth wasn't wealth that he actually built himself. It was wealth that his parents built. And they said that as long as you're going to claim this religion, you don't get anything from us. And so he chose religion. And so when they tried to bury him, when they tried to basically martyrs, they just shroud you in your own clothing. He didn't have enough clothing to even cover his entire body. And so the Prophet then says, well, the angels will cover the rest. Same thing with Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and so many other companions out there that have passed away and were martyred in that battle. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet, it was extremely sad what happened. Okay? It was extremely sad what happened. And so you can imagine the emotion that the Prophet will have at that time. He probably wants to go and he wants to tell those people that left their post, this is why I told you that you need to stay where you're at. Because Uhud was supposed to be an easy win for the Muslims. Easy win because of the strategy that they had set up. Right? Uhud could have been very much similar to the Battle of the Trench. Because the Battle of the Trench, the Muslims approached with a Persian approach in the fighting that the Meccans had never seen before. Similarly, the Meccans had never seen these people fighting from the top of a hill like this. They had never seen that. It was supposed to be an easy win. So the Prophet ﷺ would have been in his right to tell them what? What you did was what? Not okay. He would have been in his right to be upset with them. He would have been in his right to tell them that you guys were terrible warriors this time around. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. That is solely out of the mercy of Allah that you were lenient with them. Linta, it literally means to sway. Okay? It means to sway. It means to kind of conform a little bit. It means that you have your own backbone and you have your own stand, but you're able to adjust. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. That is solely out of the mercy of Allah that you were lenient with them. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ. That had you been rough with them or had you been hard-hearted with them, لَنْ فَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. They would have disappeared from you. They would have stayed away from being around you. And the interesting thing is that لَنْ فَضَّ is usually used when you're breaking glass. Okay, when someone breaks a glass, glass spreads out. When it doesn't just, unfortunately, you'll hope that it will just break in front of you. Just break in front of you, like goes everywhere. You're still finding glass like 3 days later. That's what it means. And the thing about breaking glass is if you try to put it back together, what will you see? The cracks. So it will never be as put back together as it was when it first was there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, basically this is giving the meaning of two. That they would have spread away from you, but even if you were to be kind to them and bring them back, they will still not have been like a community, how you were before. So it's only out of the mercy of Allah that you were so lenient with them, or else they would have gone away from you. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the Prophet a three-pronged approach. This is how you deal with situations in life. He says, فَعْفُ عَنْهُمْ. Forgive them. They did something wrong. It's right. You're right. They did something wrong. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't minimize his struggle. He doesn't minimize what someone did to him. No. He says, yes, they did something wrong. فَعْفُ عَنْهُمْ. Forgive them. Then he says, وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. And seek forgiveness on their behalf. That ask God to forgive them as well. Make dua for them. Pray for them. Have their best interests at heart. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and this is the part that typically we have a hard time doing. He says, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. And then consult them in the matter. Ask them, sincerely ask them, where do we go from here? Basically, reintegrate them back into society. Because if you don't do this, everybody else in the community is going to oust them. Everybody's going to say, oh, those are the people that left their posts. Those are the people that did this. Those are the people why it's the reason why the Muslims didn't win. It's the reason why my father passed away. It's the reason why my brother passed away. My cousin passed away. And would they be wrong in those statements? No, not necessarily. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this is not how you run a community. So he says, وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ. And when you have made a decision, فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. You put your trust in Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. That know that Allah loves those who put their trust in Him. I bring this story today because the way that we are to deal with people who have done us wrong is not to equally do them wrong. You hear? It's not to equally do them wrong. You don't fight fire with fire. That's not how it works. You don't say that this person has treated me this way or they did this to me, so I'm going to cuss out their entire family and then put them on blast on Instagram. That's not how it works. Sure, there are situations where people have done the Prophet something extremely wrong, and God does not tell him to forgive them. Absolutely not. He tells him that you should remove them from here and like make sure they're not here. Yes, but there are situations where there are people where you have to realize, is the relationship worth it? If it's worth it, you make effort in mending it. When we talk about mending family ties, when we talk about, having good friendships, when we talk about having close friends, family, all these different things, types of relationships, a lot of times we look at it from the aspect of this person did me wrong, they did me wrong, they did me wrong, when sometimes it's not necessarily that they meant to do that wrong. And we don't give them the space to even explain themselves. And we don't give ourselves the space to be forgiving. So as you did wrong, you have to go. When there are times, and I'm being very careful with my words, because I'm not saying that you get abused and you stay in that. No. I'm saying that there is a such thing as less than abuse. There is a such thing as human fault. There is a such thing as mistakes. There is a such thing as someone maybe not knowing how to speak properly. And you have to teach them that, hey, what you said is hurtful. And I would like for you to not say those things and give them another chance to be in your life. And sure, I provided an extreme example. The reason why I had to provide an extreme example is because when it comes to the Prophet, the examples for the little stuff are non-existent. That people will come to the Prophet and grab him by his collar and he will still laugh and joke and play with them. And like go to their house and hang out with them. So I wouldn't be fair in portraying the necessary emotion behind the situation of someone hurting you. In this particular situation, the Prophet was extremely hurt. He was extremely hurt because he gave very clear instructions on what not to do. And a group of Muslims that we still say, radiyallahu anhum, may God be pleased with them, decided not to follow the Prophet's instructions. Thus leading to the death of his cousin, his uncle, Mus'ab bin Umair, the first pioneer in Medina, and so many more companions, leading to their death. That all of that, and even the Prophet, last but not least, being hurt, that all of that could have been avoided if someone just did what he told them to do. But they didn't. So yeah, the Prophet was hurt. Yes, he felt upset. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell him? That it's out of the mercy of God that you are to be lenient with them. You forgive them, you make dua for them, and you include them back into your life. That with the relationships, you guys are in college. Let me tell you something about college. College teaches you how to navigate relationships. Every time I say relationships, people think it's talking about boyfriend, girlfriend. No. How to navigate relationships in life. Teaching you how to navigate your relationship with your parents, because now they're not picking you up and dropping you off everywhere. Teaching you how to navigate your relationship with your siblings, because if you have older siblings, they have a whole life that you're not a part of, and it's actually about making effort to be a part of their life. And you have younger siblings, you have a whole life that they're not a part of, and it's about you making effort to be a part of their life. You're making friends. The friends you went to high school with are not necessarily your closest friends anymore. Even though you thought they were going to be your best friends for the rest of your life. Didn't happen. Not saying that it won't never happen. Sometimes you rekindle relationships. It could happen in your lifetime. But you're in college now. You're making other friends. The thing about relationships is that, especially new ones as you go into adulthood, they're more difficult to navigate. Because as you get older, you realize, well, I like this and I don't like this. I like when people treat me this way and I don't like when people treat me this way. Now, if someone does something that you don't like, it is not that on their first, not even their second, not even their third offense that you just say, you know what, forget you, I never want to talk to you again. That is not a realistic way to live life. That part of interacting and being in the community and being around people is that you have to learn to navigate people. And the way that you learn to navigate people is that if the relationship is worth it, then you forgive, you make dua, and you include them back in your life. Because if it's worth it, then those people will recognize that, oh wow, I messed up. Make sense? There's another side to the coin, but I'm talking to you guys about this side of the coin. And if it's worth it, if you truly think that that person's a good person at heart, then they will recognize that, what? I messed up. And he or she forgave me. And so I'm going to try and do better. Because there's going to come a time when you're going to be on that side of the coin. You're going to say something that your friend does not like, or your family member does not like. You're going to do something that's hurtful. You're going to act in a way that's less respectful. And you're going to wish that that person just heard you out because you didn't mean it. Or maybe you were going through something. Or maybe there was a situation. And you're going to wish that they forgave you. And that feeling of not having forgiveness or not having that space to grow is the most antagonizing feeling that you could ever have. Where you feel like you're walking on eggshells because if I say something to this person, I do something to this person, I'm scared that I'm going to reopen a wound. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet that you don't want the people in your community to be walking on eggshells in Medina for a mistake that they've made, but God has already forgiven them for it. You don't want that. And so the lesson here today is actually about forgiveness and navigating your worth it relationships. I'm saying worth it because there are some terrible people in the world. And if you have terrible people in your life, they're not worth it. Leave them to God. But if there are people that are good people and you know it, but you realize that they've made just mistakes, then try explaining to them why what they did was hurtful, why what they did was harmful. Forgive them, ask Allah to forgive them, and then work on mending your relationship. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاك الله خيرا. Any quick questions?